Well, good morning and warm welcome to the official launch of the 2026 Top 10 Emerging Technologies report. This report is now in its 14th edition and it has become somewhat of a hallmark for the annual meeting of the new champions, this year with the theme of innovating at scale. But it's also a report that has an impressive track record at anticipating world-changing innovations, world-changing technologies as they emerge from the labs and show their transformative potential. Just to give you a few examples, our report in 2015 featured the precise gene editing tool CRISPR, 5 years ahead, of course, of its Nobel Prize in 2020. In 2017, we featured mRNA vaccines, 6 years ahead of its Nobel Prize in 2023. And in 2018, AI-led molecular design was featured in the top 10 list 2 years before DeepMind's AlphaFold breakthrough and 6 years before its Nobel Prize in 2024. I think you get the pattern, and I think you get why we are all excited about this year's launch, and I hope we will have an exciting discussion about the top 10 list this year. My name is Stefan Mergenthaler. I'm Managing Director and Chief Technology Officer at the World Economic Forum, and I am pleased to be joined by an exquisite panel we have for this, all key contributors to this effort. To my left, we have Fred Fenter, Chief Executive Editor of Frontiers, the leading open science publisher and co-publisher since many years of this report. To his left, we have Catherine Daniel, Director of the School of Cybernetics of the Australian National University and a member of the Scientific Advisory Council for this report. And to her left, Abdulaziz Al-Jaziri, Deputy CEO of the Dubai Future Foundation, also since several years now an important contributor to this report. So I suggest we jump right in. And Fred, maybe I start with you, because if we look at this year's landscape, we start also to see a pattern of actually the science behind all of this changing. So help us unpack this. What is the landscape we see, and what does this change in the way science gets done mean for the list of top 10 technologies we have this year?
Okay, terrific. Right. Thanks, Stefan. I think when you read through the report, you'll see there are a number of very interesting trends that emerge. Every year there are new insights that we're able to pick up from the report. I think this year, one thing that we're able to see is that there's a type of science emerging which is now worth attempting, whereas in the past, perhaps the investment required was a little bit too risky. But it's a number of these technologies really drive forward this concept that we can be bold now and we can try to attack new problems. We're able to develop actionable hypotheses. The area in which we're able to invest rationally is expanding. And so what I'd like to point out is just 3 examples from the report. 3 examples on how high quality prediction is moving upstream in the chain of action and broadening what is worth attempting scientifically. So the first one I think is the strongest example is quantum simulation for drug discovery. As probably most of us know, at least 9 out of 10 candidates for drug discovery fail. Quantum simulation is a very precise way of doing molecular simulation. It's much stronger than anything that classical simulations can conduct. Therefore, this modeling is able to remove a large number of weak candidates from the pipeline considerations very early in the process. So what this does is it opens up what's worth attempting. It opens up many new disease candidates that all of a sudden become economically worth pursuing. The second technology that I'd like to emphasize is the personalized mRNA cancer vaccine. Stefan mentioned the mRNA vaccines, but again, Specifically, training the immune system with mRNA to attack specific cancers. This is again a new pathway that is opening up our ability, new attempts in cancer therapy. The sequencing costs have dropped. The mRNA infrastructure is well established, and so the biopsy of the patient becomes the specification for the new therapy. So I think that's a very important and interesting emerging technology this year. And just at a higher level, I know that Abdulaziz is going to talk a little bit about world models, but this is also a technology I think which falls very neatly into this narrative. As probably most of you know, world models are AI models that are data-driven. They're physical engines. It's physical AI engines, and they are trained with data that describe the behavior of real systems, and they're actually able to generalize situations which they have never observed or encountered. So. Just at a very high level, this is an approach in artificial intelligence with the potential to support on many levels the shift of what is worth attempting in the development of science. Voilà.
Thank you for this, Fred. And I think it's important to recognize these wider patterns. We want to show through these 10 technologies. And Catherine, building on this, so the science is expanding, the possibilities, but another trend we see is that capability is increasingly decoupling from place. Help us unpack that and give us some illustrations with some of the technologies we feature.
Thanks, Stefan. I think the first thing is that geography is still important in some ways, but some of the technologies we're seeing in this year's list help us to think about the constraints and to overcome some of the challenges that we see in geography. So the first one I wanted to mention is PFAS destruction. There are many communities around the world that have polluted water, soil, air, and one of the amazing technologies this year is that it is becoming increasingly possible to not only contain and move PFAS into waste streams, but actually to destroy the molecules of PFAS. So forever chemicals may now not be forever, and I think that's a really exciting breakthrough that we're seeing, and hopefully will scale over the next few years. Likewise, when we think about local community, when we think about everything to grid energy, we have real potential in a geography to now not have to import electricity from large power plants, but to use every electric vehicle, every battery in a building, every other small, whether it's solar, wind, installation in a community, through the use of intelligent optimization platforms to be able to have local grids. That's a really important topic. We see a lot of this kind of work happening, including in my location in Australia, and it is really changing the way that we think about energy production and decarbonisation and electrification strategy. To support this, one of the other technologies on the list is direct lithium extraction. It's been challenging for many countries and communities around the world to get the amounts of lithium that they require. There are some very large producers of lithium globally, but with this particular breakthrough technology, it may be that people, for example, can use geothermal brines or use desalination brine to produce lithium locally. This in itself could really change the game in terms of where we can produce lithium and how local communities can use that. But I think there's one that really decouples the most from geography, and that's precision fermentation. So when we think about the fact that food typically needs to be produced in a location, the idea of precision fermentation, the idea that you can have biofactories that can produce any particular protein or vaccine or other areas, I think is going to be something really, really important. It, of course, comes with the opportunities to stop deforestation in some ways, and that we can change the way that we're sourcing our food. It also comes with ethical and social potential implications, and these kinds of discussions are other places that we can discuss that. So I'll leave it there for the moment.
Yeah, thank you. So basically we're seeing an overall pattern of more personalized, more localized, and less resource-intensive emerging from this. I might want to come back in a moment on some of the implications of this, but Abdulaziz, let me first turn to you. You and your colleagues at the Dubai Future Foundation obviously contribute to this effort, particularly looking at some of the strategic implications. I would be curious in hearing from you your reflection on what it takes to scale some of these technologies, what is underpinning their success.
Great, thank you, Stefan. I think when we worked on these 10 and coming from a larger set of kind of technologies and coming down all these to the 10, what we really understood is when it comes to technologies, the most decision makers really focus on a single kind of siloed view. Whether they're looking at efficiency, at scale, at kind of managing the risk, or even looking at regulatory compliance. I think that was something we looked into. But across all of these technologies and strategic outlooks, we really consistently found that no single view determines if this technology is going to kind of land well, or is this technology that's going to come to life. And when we talk about kind of does it arrive well or does it land well as a technology, we're really trying to understand what is the regulation, what is the societal, ethical, cultural views of these things, and what are the technological conditions for its deployment and for its adoption, and are they all in the right place? And we found kind of, I think the team and I and the rest of the group is, what actually matters, asking an earlier question, is what kind of future do we want this technology to enable? And I think even at the work that the Dubai Future Foundation is really trying to understand what kind of future do we want to create and kind of work backwards from that. And that's exactly what we took when we were working on the strategic outlook of these emerging technologies. And when we built these outlooks, we really worked backwards from a future that we believe is around kind of defined by growth, prosperity, and what we talk about well-being. In every technology, the path included balancing the regulation again, the organizations, the sectoral and societal factors all at once. You had to do them all at once, and you cannot work in a siloed view.
And taking that view, Abdulaziz, I may start with you, but then also open it up to everyone else. If you take that view and work backwards, were there particular technologies in this year's list where maybe some of the strategic implications were surprising when you take that view?
I think for a lot of them, the number one implication is regulation ready for the fast and the transformative change and the speed of the technology. And we've seen again and again is that regulation, the system of how we regulate these technologies is just not at speed of the technological change we're seeing today. And I think that's the biggest challenge that's going to face a lot of countries, a lot of cities around the world, is are you able to change your regulation at the pace, or being open to even removing regulations, opening sandboxes for these types of technologies to be able to function in this ever-changing world. And we've had similar examples in Dubai as well, but I think as I look at these 10 emerging technologies, I can just imagine the complexities of the regulators that have to be in the room, of the subject matter experts, of the industry that has to be there to ensure that these things come to life.
Fred or Catherine, any surprises from you in terms of the wider implications?
Well, just to say, in terms of regulation, I think the lattice-based cryptography, I think that there's an urgent need for some kind of consensus about regulation, because it's moving very fast, and regulation seems to be an important blocker there. I just want to say, though, the technology I really want to say something about is the passive radiative cooling, because I'm a chemist by training, and I think it's a great thermodynamic trick to create coatings that are highly reflective and that also have properties that radiate at wavelengths that cause net cooling. So I wanted to make sure that we managed to sneak that into the discussion.
Yeah, important.
Yeah,
Catherine.
I think the one that surprised me the most was the world models. When I think through what it could mean to have AI learning in a different way, in an embodied structure. I think particularly around, say, social robotics, how humans and machines are going to be working with each other, but particularly in those complex or even chaotic environments. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but there's also a lot of risk. The fact that these systems aren't only working on the past data, but are building worlds, simulated worlds at different levels of extraction. I think that's a challenge that a lot of companies, communities and governments haven't necessarily thought through. We saw how quickly generative AI that was in the 2023 report came online, and so just thinking through what world models could mean as well, I think is the one that's going to keep me up at night.
Abdulaziz, do you have an answer to this? You've done a lot of work with the
I think specifically for world models is what we've seen is that everyone has been talking about AI and data. And I think with world models, this kind of thing, this conversation on data inverts itself. And the idea that we've been seeing a lot of synthetic data coming to life and so on. But if world models really is kind of AI that builds a simulation of the reality across systems. And that really changes how we perceive how AI understands our kind of physical world and how it interacts with our physical world. It's, again, a very complex topic that we have to look into. I think understanding the implications of all of these things and how to interact with our economies, progress, and how we look at our cities.
And I want to say I will open it up for questions in a moment, so don't hesitate to make yourself seen in the room. But maybe Fred, before we turn to the audience, one reflection from you about why this effort is so important in the context of the discussions we're having here.
Thanks for the question. I think we, over the last 2 or 3 years, I think, first of all, the team is very proud of the technologies that we selected this year. I think we did a very, very good job. And this is, I think, partially due to the methodology that we employed behind the team. So we started with prompting large language models against large knowledge graphs and databases of publications to come up with a list of 1,200 candidate technologies. And we applied a second series of prompting LLMs to reduce that to, I think, 80 sort of shortlisted technologies, which were based on the trending, the strength at which these technologies were trending. Then we took these to a series of experts who managed to kind of whittle it down to 20, and then it came to the committee. The 20 took it from 20 to the 10 we see here. I think there's a wild card in there that kind of jumped in at the last minute. But the methodology, I think, we're able to see is that this use of artificial intelligence, this use of LLMs, in terms of being able to develop and a report of this quality is absolutely impressive. And it also shows that you need a community of humans in the loop also to really make it work. So,
Catherine, maybe from your side as well. I mean, you've been involved with this effort for many years now as well. Sort of, how do you see the importance of this with regards to some of the wider discussions we're having here in this forum?
I think this kind of report helps us think about the systemic implications. I think when you have lots of these technologies coming together, whether it's in a community, for a government who's trying to plan, I think it really helps to have a wide range of potential futures that are there. And I think that's one of the opportunities that fora like this have, in that we can think through in different kind of landscapes, in different political sectors, what do the planners, what do the legislators, what do the business owners have to think about to position themselves effectively, not only to put these technologies into place, but to do that well so that the societal and the environmental implications are reduced and that there are maximum benefits for people.
All right, I'll open it up for questions from the room. Yes, madam here in the middle. You'll get a microphone in a moment.
Yeah, hello, I'm Jessica Zhang. I work for ADP, a human capital management company. Human is very important. My question actually is to Fred. So regarding technology, it's mentioned the quantum simulation for drug discovery. So do you think this technology will be widely used quickly? And can this help to introduce new drugs quicker and also reduce the drug price, which people can affordable?
Yeah, I think in the report itself, in terms of the time frame for the implementation of these different technologies, the Dubai Future Foundation has done an outstanding analysis across all of the different factors, including regulation, including finance, et cetera, all of the different elements that need to fall together to make the implementation possible. So I think that for all of the technologies, that's one of the real strengths of this report, is this contribution from the Dubai Future Foundation that really helps to make that vision very, very clear.
Abdulaziz, did you want to build on this?
Yeah, I think what was interesting this year is with the addition of, when you looked at all of these technologies, we added the strategic outlook to each one of them to really understand is how do these technologies come to life, what are the implications, what are kind of the scenarios for that. I think we've been doing the same at the Dubai Future Foundation, is every time we look at an opportunity, and all these 10 opportunities are now understanding what are the funding models, what are the mechanisms to bring these things to life. Some of them looks at time frame and so on, but getting to a time frame that makes sense is trying to understand, working backwards, what regulations, what business models have to be put in place, and what funding mechanisms bring to life.
All right, we have another question there.
Thanks. Jonathan Bean, Matnex, using AI to discover new materials. My question is around sort of the entire landscape of this report of, are we at peak novelty or are we sort of at momentum? So do you find when you're looking at all of these technologies, are we as humans kind of focused on generating lots of new ideas or really scaling up the old ideas? Is there kind of a balance between those two in this report? Thanks.
How much focus on scaling up the old versus the frontier? Yeah, Catherine.
I can have a go at that one. So I think there is a real balance here. Many of the technologies here rely on past breakthroughs as well. And then there are areas, if we think about energy, food, water-related technologies, materials-related technologies, where people have been working on these for a very long time. It's just a matter that some of these are breaking through, and it's going to particularly be the convergence, I think, locally of these that will have some of the biggest impacts.
Can I just add one thing? Yeah. As Stefan mentioned, this is the 15th, next year will be the 15th annual report. And, we were just chatting here. I think it would be an excellent time just to take a look backwards at all the 15 reports that have been done and to do some kind of meta-analysis to see where have there been repetitions, how have these different technologies linked to each other, where has the committee been particularly foresightful in terms of being able to identify, et cetera. So I think that would actually be a very interesting and intriguing project just to go back and look at the history of these 150 selected technologies to answer the kind of question that you just raised.
All right, we have another question here right in front. Madam.
Hi, my name is Pratibha. I'm from Cognizant and I lead social impact for APJ. My question is for Mohammad Jaziri. So at the Dubai Future Foundation, given that skills are getting redundant now, and I would love to understand what you think in terms of which are the skill sets we might be over-investing right now, both governments and businesses, and what is the skill set that we are under-investing now, but we need to really ramp up, and very importantly, how? I would also love for the other panelists to lean in. Thank you.
I'd like to answer this in a different way. As the Dubai Future Foundation, we've existed for about 10 years. So this year has been our 10th anniversary. And if I'd say, looking at the past 10 years, what was one thing that ensured that these types of technologies, the types of thinking that we do around the future, from understanding how things shift, what initiatives we had to bring to life. I think again and again, I sit at the center of government. It's always been in this openness to change. And I don't know if this is something you can teach or something that you just try again and again and again. And I think we've again and again tried to understand is for an ever-changing world, what type of people and what type of talent do you need in your teams, and are people who are open to change.
If I can add to that, I think one of the things that we're seeing as a need is critical doing. We've done a lot of critical thinking. Critical thinking is, really important with these things, but the critical doing, how do we actually get our hands on the tools? How do we continue to build together? How do we do together?
Yeah.
How do we address change together? How can we be agile and resilient? So a lot of that critical doing, reflecting on what we're doing, is I think one of those skills of the future.
All right, I'm going to have one final question. Unfortunately, we cannot take all the questions in the room, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to follow up. Sir in front here.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
All right, can we get another microphone? Here we go.
Thank you very much, Khaled bin Brek, Country Senior Partner for PwC in the United Arab Emirates. My question was around technology. There's a lot out there on the impact of AI and technology on the labor market, the impact of AI and technology as well on sustainability and climate change. My question is, how do you think governments, employers, education systems should work together so that technology and AI adoption becomes an opportunity rather than displacement or further impact on climate change? Keen to get the insights from the panelists. Thank you.
All right, a very short final reflection.
Well, I mean, I'll just say quickly from my point of view as a publisher, what we're seeing is that we're adopting AI very, very deeply in the organization, and it is affecting the jobs, but it's affecting them in a very positive way. It's taking away a lot of the routine tasks and allowing people to connect at the human level, at the relationship level. That's critically important for our business. And so, just to say that's the example that I know. I just see the very, very positive, the beneficial effects that the AI is bringing to our organization.
Yeah, I would say that it's really important to train politicians, leaders, boards in what these technologies are so they feel comfortable with being able to ask questions about them, to figure out in their own organisations where should they be using these systems and where might they want to refrain from using them, but giving people the confidence to make those human judgments, I think, is one of the really important tasks.
And I think maybe at the UAE level, it's at the federal and at the local level in Dubai, we're going on and embarking on the biggest training program for AI on teaching kind of civil servants how to use it. And I think again and again, it has allowed us to do many different things, as simple as we prototype much faster. We try out things much faster. We're able to think about things much faster. We're able to put things on the table much faster to have a discussion with different partners around.
All right, I think this sums up quite well also the intention of this report, actually being a starting point for discussions, for further discussions. We hope you engage actively with the 10 technologies featured in this report. We'll have dedicated briefings on some of those in the program these next days. Thank you all very much for being here, and wish you a productive meeting. Thank you.